Morning, everyone. I'm just going to give people a few moments to join us. I think the session is starting at 5 past. So if you don't mind waiting till then, thank you. Morning, everyone. I'm just going to give people another minute to join the session and then we will begin. Right, so I thought we'd make a start. Morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning via Teams. My name is Mrs. Hutchinson. I'm one of the social sciences teachers here at Shenley Brook End. What I thought we would do, you can see the department names on the screen now. There's 4 teachers in the social sciences department. The activity I thought we'd start with is to have a bit of a discussion about what we think psychology is, and then I will tell you a little bit about the course, and then you can get to see an idea of what lessons are like. So I'll put that on the screen for you now. Please feel free to put in the chat box if you'd like to, or you can think about it and write some ideas down yourself about what you think psychology might be. How would you define psychology? So I'll give you a minute or two to have a think about that. We've got some good ideas coming in already. Thank you for that. There's some really good ideas there. Thank you for your contributions. You've got about 30 seconds if you wanted to add anything into the chat box. Okay, so there's some really good ideas there. People have been talking about studying how people behave, studying the mind, how people think, why people behave the way they do. So some really good ideas there. What I'll do, I'll put the information on the screen for you. So there are a few definitions of psychology, but the one that we will go with is the study of mind and behaviour. And the idea of using research to understand and explain thought, emotion, and things like that. So well done. There's some really good guesses there. There's some information for you. Psychology is both applied and academic, and it does study the human mind and behaviour. Research is a really important part of psychology in order for us to understand and explain how people think and how they feel. So I thought it would be nice for us to start with that. As we go through the session, if you do think of any questions, I will be talking more sort of general questions. There will be a time for that. But if you think of any questions or you have any questions, please let me know. So what I thought I would do is start just by talking to you about the course structure. So the 3 papers that are or make up the psychology qualification are on the screen for you now. So the first paper has the 4 topics: social influence, memory, attachment, and psychopathology. Then you have paper 2. Paper 2 has 3 sections. It has approaches in psychology, it has biopsychology, and then research methods. So that makes up paper 2. Then for paper 3, there are 4 sections within paper 3. One of them is a compulsory section, which is issues and debates. And then there are 3 sections that at Shenley Brook End we choose, which are gender, schizophrenia, and aggression. So there's 4 topics within paper 3. Just so that you can see a little bit about how the course is structured. You've got on the screen the time. All of the papers are 2 hours, and they are all out of 96. So there are 3 exams at the end of year 13 that make up the psychology A level. So in terms of some of the questions that you've got there in red, hopefully so far we've looked at what you'll be studying, who'll be teaching you. Possibly there's 4 teachers that make up the department. how you'll be assessed, which is the information you've got on the screen, and then I'm going to talk to you in a moment a little bit about expectations. Are there any questions at this point about the course structure or the exams? We ask that students purchase the textbook, ideally, yeah. So that's a good reminder, thank you. The textbook that we use is on the screen as well there. There are 2 editions, so if you can try to purchase the new edition, that would be appreciated as well. Yeah, the exams are all at the end of year 13. So the 3 exams are taken at the end of year 13. In terms of the teaching or the breakdown, the paper 1, we cover those topics generally in year 12. Paper 2 is spread across year 12 and 13, and then paper 3, we tend to cover those topics in year 13. There are practice examinations throughout year 12, yes, and in-class assessments and things. Thank you, it's great questions there. Right, so if I put the expectations on the slide, I'll just give people a moment to have a read through the expectations that we have in the social sciences department. Okay, so hopefully people have had a chance to have a look at the expectations. In terms of the questions, you don't have to have taken psychology at GCSE to study the A-level. So with regard to the expectations, I think some of these are probably fairly kind of expected from you to be kind of expectations that we'd have of students. But like I say, the information there, things about, you know, contributing to discussion, sort of wider reading, and, you know, conducting your own sort of reading and research around lessons is something that we really encourage. So what I will do, we'll have a look at a bit of a sort of sample of a lesson now. So on the screen, you've got a bit of an activity. So we're going to have a look at something from our social influence topic, which is conformity. So you've got a definition of conformity there. So it's a type of social influence that involves a change in belief or behaviour in order to fit in with a group. The change is in response to a real or imagined group pressure. So what I would like you to do is have a think. There's some questions in the blue text on the screen for you. Have a think about maybe a time or recent, or can be in the past, time where you have maybe conformed, and think about the questions that you've got on the screen there. So I'll give people a few minutes, just have a think about this, and maybe think about their ideas, and then we'll have a look at this together. Okay, so if you've been having a think about your example, maybe have a think about the questions. Think about, where were you? Do you think the setting maybe had an influence on your behaviour? Do you think your age might have made a difference to your decision to conform? And who were you with? Were you with friends, people you know well, possibly family, or were you with people that you didn't know very well? So it's interesting to consider when we conform, maybe having a think about, times that we have done that and maybe the situation that may have contributed to that. What I'd like us to have a look at are two different types of conformity. So if people, as we go through the session, if people are jotting anything down, making any notes, that's fine. But have a read of the two types or two reasons for conformity. So the first explanation or reason for conformity is normative social influence. So this idea proposes that it's the desire to be liked, and we often conform to fit into a group because we want to fit in and we don't want to be left out. Informational social influence is slightly different, so that's a different reason. That is the desire to be right. So we conform because maybe we are unsure of the situation. Maybe we think other people might know more than we do in that particular situation, and so we might take our sort of lead from them in terms of how to behave. So what I'd like you to do is, linking back to your example that you've had a think about from the previous slide, have a think about, was the example that you have given normative or informational? Do you think it was more likely to be explained by normative social influence or informational social influence? So you don't have to share the example with us, but maybe have a think. And if you'd like to, you can put in the chat whether you think it was normative or informational. But I'll give people a couple of minutes to have a think and put that in the chat box if they'd like to. So people starting to have a think there about conformity, putting some good ideas in the chat. Thank you for those contributions. So like I say, have a think and make a decision whether you think your example that you had a think about was either normative or informational. You've got about another minute or so. Okay, so I think some of the examples that we've got so far look quite similar to normative social influence. Did It's up to you whether, like I say, you put that in the chat box or you can just have a think about it yourself. But yeah, so far I think we've got quite a few comments relating to normative social influence there. But thank you for your contributions. So these, thinking about these two ideas, we're going to have a look at these two ideas and have a look at a theory that sort of links to the idea of conformity as we go through the taster session. What I'd like you to do, there's two definitions on the screen. Have a think, and then in the chat box, if you think you know what type of conformity, either normative or informational, the top definition is, feel free to put that in the chat box if you think you know the answer. I'll just give people another few moments if they want to add their answers into the chat box. We've got some good ideas so far. Well done. I think most people have identified the top one and the bottom one correctly. Okay, so well done. For everyone, I think everyone's got this right so far. Let's put it in the chat. So well done. The top definition is indeed normative social influence. So it's that idea of maybe following the crowd, changing our behaviour in order to fit in, be liked by the group, and to fit in with the norm that they have maybe decided. And then the bottom one, again, well done. That one is indeed informational. It's that idea that if we are unsure maybe of the way in which to behave, we can change our behaviour and we might look around to others and conform because we believe that maybe that the majority or that group have maybe the right answer. And so we can change our behaviour. So well done for everyone that got those right. I think everyone did. So that's good stuff. Right, so if we have a look at some information now, the information that you've got on the screen might be useful to help you with the summer task, which I'm going to talk about at the end of the session. So you may wish, as we go through, to just jot down any sort of notes or any information that you think it might be particularly useful from the next few slides. So the idea that we're going to have a look at is types of conformity, and a psychologist that has proposed some ideas in this area is Kelman. So Kelman has identified three different types of conformity. So as you can see on the screen, they are ordered. The most shallow level is compliance, and then the deepest level of conformity is internalization. So I'll give people a moment in case they think there's anything there that they want to jot down as we go through. But these are three different types of conformity that Kelman has proposed. We're going to have a look at each one in a little bit more detail in a moment, but just in case people need to finish writing anything down, I'll give you a moment. Okay, so if we have a look at the three types of conformity together now. So the first type is compliance. So like I say, if there's anything on the slide that you think is useful or that you want to make a note of, feel free to do that. So compliance is when the person publicly conforms, but privately continues to disagree. So it's the shallowest form of conformity. You've got an example there as well on the screen. So people will publicly maybe change their behaviour to go along with the group, but privately they won't change their sort of private view. So you've, like I say, for each one, I've put an example on the screen for you. But this is the first type of conformity. So this is the shallowest form. But I'll give people a moment if they're jotting anything down. If you have any questions about any of the slides or any of the content, feel free to ask as well as we go through. Okay, so if we have a look at the next one, oh, here we go, sorry. So the middle kind of level, if you like, is identification. So you've got the information on the screen again, but it's when a person will publicly as well as privately conform. So they identify with a group and they feel a sense of group membership. The change in belief is often quite temporary. So the idea is that people do change their behaviour, or they do conform publicly and privately. But once the individual maybe leaves that group, they no longer feel the need to conform. So it might be a sort of temporary change in their sort of public and private belief. So the example you've got there is a person might support a new football team every time they move to a new town. So for the time that maybe they are with that group, they will publicly and privately conform. But if they are no longer with that group, then they may change their view. So again, I'll give people a moment if you want to write anything down from the slide. Okay, and then if we have a look at some details about the last type of conformity. So this one is the deepest level of conformity. So this one is when a person, same as the other one, will publicly and privately conform, but they will internalize the view of that group. And so it's the deepest level of conformity. So even when maybe they are no longer a part of a certain group, they will continue to conform and hold those beliefs and behave in a certain way. So you've got an example there again on the screen, and this one, internalization, is the deepest level of conformity. So again, I'll give people a moment if they are making any notes or writing anything down from this one. Right, okay, so what we'll do, so that you can have a little bit of a check to see how many of these you have managed to maybe have a think about and understand, you've got to fill in the gaps on the screen. You don't need to write it all out. I would maybe number it. I think there's 13 gaps, if I am correct. I'll count in a second. But I would probably put 30, like 1 to 13 maybe on a piece of paper, and then put the word that you think goes in the gaps in order from the word box at the bottom. But I'll give you about 5 minutes, just have a look at this and to see if you can fill in the gaps. If there's anything you're not sure of, then please feel free to ask me a question, let me know. Right, okay, no problem. What I'll do, I can, if I read them out for you, then you can either write them down, or if you want me to repeat them, that's no problem. So the words at the bottom, is it just the very bottom row, or can you not see any of the words in red? Okay, no problem, that's fine. So what I'll do, just in case anyone else can't see them as well, so the words that are the options for the fill in the blanks are disapproving. So if you maybe jot these down somewhere and then you can pick which ones you want to use. So disapproving, conform, internalization, yeah, feel free to write these, and then you can decide which ones you'll put in the gap. That's absolutely fine. Right, so we've had disapproving, conform, internalization. The next one is right, as in R-I-G-H-T. Then we've got individual, internalize, then we've got norms, and then for the bottom row of red words, we've got publicly, then we've got converted, and then there's a couple more, change, contradict, connected, and then the last one is temporary. So I'm just going to read the list out again, just so people can check that they've got them to do the fill in the gaps. So disapproving, conform, internalization, right, individual, internalize, norms, publicly, converted, change, contradict, connect, and temporary. So let me know if anyone needs any more help with that. But I'll give you another minute so that you can have a go at filling in the gaps. So you've got about 30 seconds left. Right, okay, so what I'll do, I'll put the answers on the screen for you, and then you can check how many of these you managed to put in the right place. So I'll leave those up for a second. So the first one is conform, second one is norms, third one is contradict, fourth is disapproving, fifth one is right, sixth one is change, seventh one is internalize, eighth one is converted, the ninth one is individual, the 10th one is connected, 11 is publicly, 12 is temporary, and then the last one is internalization. So if people want to say how many they managed to get right in the chat, just as a number, you're welcome to. You don't have to do that, it's absolutely fine. So what I'd like us to do, we've had a look at an idea. Within psychology lessons, we have a look at theories and ideas, and these are some of the activities that we might do with the information. What I'd also like us to have a look at, so evaluation is also a part of the course, and we spend time looking at theories like we've just done, and then we evaluate those theories. So Kelman's theory, we've had a look at the types of conformity and the shallowest to the deepest level. What I'd like you to do, within the evaluation, we have a think about whether things, are always right, whether we can think of any problems with the theory, anything that it doesn't explain, anything that could be explained better by another theory. So what I'd like you to do, just for a few minutes, have a think about, based on the Kelman's ideas about conformity, any sort of criticisms or any evaluation you can think of. On the screen, you've got some ideas, some things to consider. So you've got the idea of, what makes good evidence and how do you define evaluation. So feel free to have a think about those as well. But as part of the psychology course, it's really important that you can think critically, and you can think about ideas and think maybe what's not so good about them, what is good about them, and obviously use that to evaluate. So I'll give you a couple of minutes just to see if you can think of anything that might evaluate Kelman. If you'd like to put those ideas in the chat box, you're welcome, or you can jot them down to yourself. So I'll give you 2 minutes. So we've already got an idea in the chat box. Thank you for that. Yeah, that is a good idea, that one, to evaluate Kelman. Okay, so you've got about another 30 seconds. If you wanted to add anything into the chat box about the evaluation of Kelman, we've got some good ideas so far about it may be ignoring individual differences. That's a very good idea. It might not explain why not everybody chooses to conform. Again, a really good idea. Yeah, again, yeah, some good ideas there around why some people might choose to conform at a deeper level than others. Yeah, definitely. Well done. So, as I say, part of the psychology course, a big part of the psychology course is about evaluating and learning to think critically. If I show you some ideas for Kelman's theory on the screen now. So, some of these have already been mentioned by people in the chat box, so well done for that. Indeed, individual differences is a possible evaluation point because the theory has put the types of conformity that we've had a look at, but it doesn't explain why some people might conform and others don't. Indeed, so well done for that one. The the problem you might have in researching the difference between public and private conformity is that obviously if people conform publicly, we can see that, but if people conform privately, that can be quite difficult to research. And so that one could be quite difficult in order to research and provide evidence for. It doesn't also categorize levels of conformity maybe in a way that takes into account lots of different situations. So levels of conformity, not all behaviour might fit into these particular three into these three groups, which I think someone said in the chat as well. So you've got a few other ideas there. Again, we're not always self-aware as to why we conform. So some people might not know whether they are maybe near a sort of compliance or internalization. But well done for the ideas that people have come up with there. So this is again something that in psychology we will spend time doing, is considering the evaluation of theory. So the questions in purple talking about how we define evaluation. It's allowing us to think about how good the theory is. Are there any problems with it? And to think critically. So what I'd like us to do, just very quickly, this is just a little test for yourselves. I've put some words from the lesson on the screen for you. Just have a think about these, go through and see if you're able to define each one of these, if you know what they mean. You don't necessarily have to write this down, but if, for example, there's a word and you're not sure what it means at this point in the lesson, then you feel free to put that in the chat box. But see if you can recap all of the sort of key terms from the lesson so far, and see if you are able to sort of define them or say what they mean. I'll just give people a minute or two to have a look at those. Like I say, any that you're not sure about, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Right, so yes, you're exactly right. So yeah, compliance is indeed that in public we would conform, but we would indeed have a different opinion in private. Yeah, that's exactly right. Well done. Yeah, yes, indeed. Well done. Yeah, the comments about internalisation are right. So, like I say, if there are any on there that you're not sure about, please feel free to ask me. What I'd like us to do, but just before I talk to you a little bit about the summer task and things, we'll have a quick true or false quiz from the session. So again, in your notes, maybe if you put 1 to 6, and then you can just put true or false for these, please. So if people would like to write them in the chat box, they're welcome to, or they can you can just jot them down on a piece of paper. That's absolutely fine. Got about another 30 seconds. Right, okay, so if we have a look at the answers for that one, some people have put those in the chat box, so you can check those. One is false. There are 3 stages to Kelman's theory. 2 is true, 3 is true, 4 is true, 5 is false. But there's in terms of the 4 topics though, I will allow true on that one. If you went for the general topics, we tend to study a couple of others from paper 2 as well. But I will allow true for that one as well, if you were just thinking about that paper 1. And then question 6 is true. So well done if you got those right. So what I'd like us to do for the last sort of thing to have a look at in the taster session, if people have questions, obviously I can try to answer those as well. So on the screen you have the summer task. A bit of a date for your diaries. The deadline for you to have completed the summer task is the 24th of September. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what it is. But if you are planning on completing the summer task as part of the psychology course, then the deadline for the summer task is the 24th of September. I think that information is on the website, but you may wish to make a note of that just so that you've got it. So that's the 24th of September is when the psychology summer task is due. So the summer task, feel free to have a read through. I believe these are all available on the website, the summer tasks as well, but feel free to ask the sixth form team if you can't access those. So you've got a task that will hopefully support you with your study of psychology. Like it says there, you'll be given a baseline test during the first few weeks in the autumn term, just to see, where you're at and to see how you progress through the course. So you've got the opportunity to complete some independent work. So the task consists of the 4 activities that you've got on the screen there. So feel free to have a read through those. And obviously you'll need to do a bit of research to allow you to answer those questions. Are there any questions about the summer task? The summer tasks are recommended for you to complete, before starting the courses, or well, until the 24th of September in this case. But yes, it is something that we ask you to do. No problem. Are there any other questions? I think there's some more details about summer tasks on the website, or the sixth form team might speak more generally about the process of them. But this is the task for psychology. Okay, so if people have any other questions, feel free to ask. I mean, reading around the subject is always useful, but I would say the summer task is a good thing to do to help you prepare, because it's linked, the lesson today as well has been linked to the one of the first topics that we do, which is social influence. Okay, so if people have questions, feel free to put those in the chat, and I will stay around for a few minutes just to, in case there's any other questions come through. But other than that, thank you very much for attending the psychology taster session this morning. It's been wonderful to have so many people here. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, you're welcome to leave the live taster session, and hopefully I'll see you in September. Thank you. So a couple of questions I can just see there. You don't need to email the summer work to us. You can bring it with you to your psychology lessons in September. So you don't need to email that to us, no. In terms of the textbook that we had on the slide, it's the AQA Psychology AS textbook by Cara Flanagan. I think there are details on the website of the textbook. If you can't find it, please let us know. Okay, so thank you everyone. Bye.